Showtime.
It's about that time.
Let's go.
You're right where you need to be. This is GCOM Radio.
Hardest radio station on the planet. Yeah.
Powered by Lyfeblood.com.
We certified.
And hosted by Nova Phoenix.
Give them that flavor.
Hey folks, what is going on? Man, we are back for another episode. This is Nova Phoenix, your host of GCOM Radio on iHeartRadio. Yes. Yeah, I skipped another week. It was Memorial Weekend, and I just wanted to chill out and with the fam and not have to be pressured under time. So I took that week off. And you know, just been doing my thing. How has your week been? How has your week been? All right. Hopefully it was cool. And you guys been laying low and trying to shelter in. As of course, is what we're all going through. But I also know, not only dealing with this COVID-19 thing, we're also dealing with what has been transpiring in the last week. Everybody knows it's happening all over the country. People are protesting the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, and it was jumping off, man. It's jumping off, and I know it happened in Minneapolis. When I saw it starting to take form in LA, I knew it was going to spread to other cities. I knew it was going to spread to other cities, and we're here, man. We're here. So just going to do a little different, something different for the show. We have a special guest on this show. It is Tatenda Mungofa, my brother. We bumped into each other online, and we're having an interview. And it's actually going to be the first interview for In the Phone Zone. I don't do any interviews. I like to just keep it with the music and talking, but I whenever there is an interview that can happen, this an interview like this will happen. So the brother is the owner of the Mureza excuse me, Prime 8. It was on, I put it up on IG, and we got to get an interview going. But before we get to that, I just wanted to give my understanding of what's been happening all over this country, across the U.S. in several cities. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna drink some of my tea. So I'll start off with the saying that I've been seeing a lot on social media, and that's with the late and great Martin Luther King Jr. He says in an interview, a riot is the language of the unheard. And that was speaking about the unrest that were happening at the time in the 60s. I think it was 66, 68, somewhere around that. No, 66, sorry. Definitely in 66. And he had this interview, and he made an interesting statement about what was happening. Now, he didn't agree with all the activity that was happening, the looting and all that. He thought that was a lost cause, and he was for nonviolence, but he understood why it was happening. And he said it so poignantly in that one sentence. And that is what is happening now once you fast forward into 2020. And but I wouldn't call it a riot. I would call it more of a rebellion. A lot of people are calling it, or uprising. So what was happening similar to in LA in 1992, and the same thing for the same reason, Rodney King, and the officers got acquitted. And it jumped off in LA. And I remember that I remember when it happened when I was younger, and I was stuck to the television seeing all the imagery and what the people were doing, and the anger and the frustration and the angst. And now we're here, and it's all over again, and it's in literally most states, if you look at a map on Google. And people are tired. In particular, black people are tired of being killed, being lynched, and justice is not being served, because every time you do have some officers that go to jail, but even when they do go to jail, they don't go to jail for the time that we want them to go to jail. There should be 25 years, 40 years. They get a slap on the wrist. And if it's not a slap on the wrist, all of a sudden they get off. Now, George Floyd was kind of like the icing on the cake, and everything was just coming in, especially with Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and them dying by police. And George Floyd was just a case that just set it off. He was like, okay, people are done. And I think it's important that we start understanding what black people are going through in this country and how they're all linked to American history, starting back to the transatlantic slave trade. And you fast forward it into the Jim Crow laws and the black codes and what black folk was going through in the 50s and the 60s, as I said, with Martin Luther King and Malcolm and the civil rights movement and the black power movements and going into the 80s and 90s. All of these things are linked. They're all connected. Is in American history, and it unveils the deep disease that America refuses to deal with. America's racism, America's bigotry, and dealing with overall white supremacy. And it's something that America, they rather sweep it under the rug than actually deal with it face on. And sometimes it is cognitive dissonance where people detach themselves from the feelings and the pain and suffering from other Americans that live on this land. They are disconnected. And sometimes some people might say it's by design. Other people may say it's just carelessness and in dealing with the white privilege of not having to deal with the pain and suffering as other people because you live in a bubble, or white folks that is. And either way, it's something that we have to seriously, and I spoke about it on the show before, that we seriously have to confront head on and actively deconstruct, dismantle this worldview of white supremacy. And it all ties into what's happening with police departments across the country. They're not isolated cases. They're all related to each other. And when you step back, you see a more sinister picture of how America carries on the way it carries on, in all its ugliness. Now, as far as the protesting is concerned, I don't have any words to say about the protesting. I cannot tell a person, another person, especially if they're going through systemic racism or systemic oppression, how they must react when it comes to that breaking point. People do what they do. And this just goes to show that America has to listen. America has to deal with their issues. Or not just a matter of raising your nose in the air and not wanting to listen in that white privilege, but also to actively, as I said before, dismantle a system that's put in place that propels white folk forward in this country. And it's done deliberately so they feel that they are more important, of more value. There has to be some racial caste system that has to be maintained, and it's all false. And I just like to shout out every other individual that joined the protest across cities. It is all the shout out to all the non-black folk. Shout out to the Amish people that joined the protest, the Native Americans. Also on the international level, if I'm correct, if my eyes did not deceive me, and from what I read, even folks in Berlin were in front of the U.S. Embassy chanting Black Lives Matter. And also Africa is showing up for that same cause. The world is watching. And we know if the world is watching and people are joining in on the conversation, that it's important that everybody gets on the same page and treat this as a human rights issue. And it's something that has to be brought across the table and across the ears and the eyes and the minds of our best around the world, the ones that believe in justice at the United Nations, to deal with this issue that America is dealing with. And that's complicated, I understand. America is the big dog at the seat of the table at the United Nations. But it's important that if every country understands and feels and empathizes and sympathizes with the pain and struggle of African Americans in this country, it's important that it is said at the next meeting at the United Nations. Because this is something that we've been dealing with forever. And America cannot chastise and critique other countries, the human rights failures of other countries, if it's not willing to deal with its own human rights failures right within its own borders. Now, I'd just like to say, other than shouting out the non-black folk that supported the efforts in cities across the world and across in cities here in America, I also like to point out those wild party protesters that just are making fun of this whole situation and want to just stoke the flames of chaos and think this is some anarchic Burning Man that people just want to woohoo and run through these blocks and just start breaking windows and doing all types of wild things. And the one in particular person, this YouTube star that I just saw, his name is Jake Paul and his boys, running through an Arizona mall thinking this is a joke and wants to treat this like it's some party. And that's disrespect to it's a disrespect to not just to George Floyd, but every black person that have been killed by the hands of the police since the beginning, and whatever manifestation that police have taken during over the years in the life of this country. And I think it's despicable and it's disgusting, and he should be put on Front Street for that. And all the other individuals that are taking this lightly. Now, also, because I also like to say you got to be careful with that, because of course the people that support what's going on as far as police brutality, but I also do not agree with people just running amok, as I say, with those same individuals, because all you're going to do, you're going to go back to your neighborhoods in the comfort of your whiteness and not have to deal with the repercussions. Because all you're doing is bringing that same unnecessary attention, unneeded attention to the protesters that have to live in these cities. All right, the black folk that got to live in these cities and deal with it, because they're going to attach these things, these violations to them. So don't come down there and start breaking windows and acting wild and doing all this craziness, and you're going to go back home and feel like you've done something, and then really you're causing more damage than you realize. We also know, and it's so layered, man, what's happening with these riots, man. It's so layered. And you have to deal with these wild party protesters. You have to deal with these infiltrators as well. You have to deal with these infiltrators, unfortunately, in order to misdirect the conversation about police brutality, in order to sour the eyes and ears of the people that are not protesting and are watching it on the television. You do have state-sanctioned infiltrators that are causing that chaos or adding to the chaos by breaking windows. You see the videos. Go to YouTube, go to Twitter, go to Google it, where they're breaking these windows and also placing bricks by certain stores, expecting the protesters, the ones that get wild and get crazy, and then they're angry, of course, they're gonna grab the closest thing to them and start setting it off. And you see it in the pictures on how these infiltrators are setting themselves apart with their earpieces, with their white armbands, with their military style boots, I mean, you can see it from a mile away. Backwards baseball cap. You know, it's not about letting people protest. It's not about that. It's about trying to turn the masses off from what the protesting is about. Now it's become about the riots. It's become about breaking windows. It becomes about all these other things. And then again, we're leaving the real reason why this whole thing started off behind in a shadowy corner. Because now you're misdirecting the people more towards the things that they want to be turned off with, and not the subject at hand, which is police brutality, systemic racism, not isolated cases, but dealing with something that is a set plan that goes from the state level down to the local level, also federal. Nothing new to black people. Nothing new. So it's so many layers here. So many layers. I also saw on one video of some brothers that one brother was on Blavity on IG, and they were talking about their frustrations and their anger and letting it out. And one brother that was 43, he was like, "Fuck it, man, we can't do this. Nothing else we gonna do. We did the protesting, we did the kneeling, we did the sitting down, we did the lying down, we did the raising the flags and the banners. We did everything that we can to get their attention to try to stop it. We might as well burn this shit up." And he was speaking from his frustration. There was another brother that was trying to tell him, we can't do it like this. We have to play it smarter because we can't burn it. Because after that, what next? And it was talking about that brother that was talking about we should just jump it off. He was 43. He was like, "Man, I'm 43 going through this." The other brother that was talking to him would say, "I'm 31." And then he pulled in a younger brother into the conversation to speak to him. He was 16. You have generational oppression happen here. This is not flights of fancy. This is not something that people are just attaching themselves to, and it's like, oh, it's nothing. They're attaching themselves to isolated incidents, and they're overly sensitive, and what's the big deal? And Colin Kaepernick was talking about that when he was kneeling, but it turned into the conversation. Here's how you go. You shift the conversation to patriotism, a lack thereof. And it was about police brutality. It's about injustice. It's about systematic racism that continuously oppresses the African American population. And America is not dealing with it, or they just don't want to deal with it because this warped sense of this disease that's in their minds. And the frustration has boiled over into what we see today. But I tell people they have to organize. They have to strategize. They got to protect the ones that are fighting for justice. And you have to plan. After we get all this out, because we will pass this, after we get past this, we have to figure out how we're going to plan. And sometimes we're going to have to bully our way into certain corners and not feel like, oh, well, we did. No. We have to change the strategy. So what is our plan from here if you want change? What is our plan from here? I believe in voting. I do believe in voting. Choose a candidate. Oh, it hasn't gotten. Just listen to me out. I jotted down a couple of ideas. Vote. Vote for your candidate of choice. Vote for your circuit judge, if it's your council member, your mayor, your senator, the comptroller, the one that's handling the money, the police chiefs, etc., who are out there in whatever way, or using the influence to get the right person in. If someone is shoved in your face for them to be the police commissioner or to be the mayor or to whoever, check their record. Push the candidate that you want. Push the candidate that is going to represent you in the best way possible, and dealing with the issues with your best interests at heart. Okay? Vote for those people. Now I've been walking through the streets of New York, and I will have people during the voting season come and shove a flyer in my face. And vote for this person. I'm like, I don't know who this person is. Why would you want my vote? Why would I give you my vote on someone that I don't even know who they are? And it's up to you, the people, to say, no, get that out of my face. I'm not voting for that person. I don't know who they are. And they want to give you flyers and they want to shove some paper in your face so you can sign and support them. I don't know you. Are you still using archaic ways for you to start supporting candidates or politicians? No. Do that online. I want to see your whole record. Oh, that's a great person. I could go open up my phone, tap it in, and see your history right there and see if I'm with you or against you. Everything that you voted for and everything you voted against, your whole record one time. Don't shove something in my face just to get my signature. Choose the person that's going to represent your interests. 2, you can't just vote. Create economic incentives for your candidate. That way that they can flourish without expecting some sort of handout from the inside. Where you have to set up some fund to say, all right, because my thing is you just can't vote because once they get in the door, they disappear behind the door and you don't know what pressures that they're going through. And you think that person's gonna set up some sort of legislation for you for his or her constituency, and then it doesn't happen, and you get deflated, you get depressed. Oh, what happened? You have to set up some sort of economic incentives. Businesses do it. They have lobbyists. They do favors for these politicians. That's why your vote don't mean shit once you vote. Because once you get inside, if politicians say, what's in it for me? Let's keep it real. So if that's the game played, you have to set up something where you can say, hey, this is what's in it for you. But you have to pick someone that's going to be on your side first. Because if you pick some jag off, it doesn't matter what you give it to him. His or her, they're going to do it. He or she's going to do it their own way. But you have to set up something where it's going to be economic incentives for them to work for the people. And transparency. Let them be able to record every meeting that they're in, every gathering, every forum. If they cannot legally record audio or video, they should be taking notes and taking it back to the people. And if you see the fuckery that's happening in local government in whatever meeting that after they come out of it, they should call them out, expose them, and the people should do the rest. This is how you weed out the foolishness. And you gotta straight up throw bows and bully your way into these offices because it's not one person. As I said, it's systemic. It is systemic. That means more than one person is in on the affery. So it can't be just one person. You got to straight up get that person in there, vote them in. All right, who's this person? Who's that person? Who's that? You got to go there. You got to go there. You got to go there. And then, obviously, if you feel some pushback, that's when you got to raise hell, and however that comes into play, or however that manifests. Because you have to bully your way into local government and make sure you get what you want. Transparency is key. And you got to be with that person that you vote, that politician that you gave your vote to every step of the way. You got to be with them. There's got to be a relationship between the person that you voted for, that politician, and the people. What's going on in there? Weekly talks. Get involved with police unions and force transparency. Possibly add some economic incentives to the police unions as the people within certain communities. Whether you're in Brooklyn, the Bronx, or Staten Island, or Long Island, wherever you're from, offer them something. Hey, listen, send in a representative. This is what we're going to offer you, because you want to create those relationships. I hear some of those politicians up, they get pressured from the unions. Pressure what? Pressure in what way? You have to figure out how that goes. You got to write it down, figure it out. Okay, what's this pressure done now? They moving them on A side, they're moving them on B side, and then how are you going to counter it? It's a chess game. So if there's an economic incentives, say there's 2.5, say Brooklyn for instance, there's 2.5 million people in Brooklyn. And what if each one of them gave it? And I always have to bring it back to Lyfeblood.com, how Lyfeblood.com can help the people. I'm not saying everybody's going to every single person is going to give. Say half of the 2.5. Let's just say 1 million. 1 million, if they give $20 a month, that's $20 million that you go towards a fund that goes to whatever you need as the people, represents the people. And you can have an independent auditor that checks that money on a consistent basis, weekly basis, bi-weekly, monthly, to make sure that your money does not go any other place but for that one purpose. Because too much every time you have the people on the other side as the enemy is going to say, well, what are you doing with that money? What are you doing with it? Are you spending it on yourself? There has to be all right, you want to play that game? We're going to have an independent auditor check this money bi-weekly to make sure that money is in there and it's growing to the amount that we want it to, and it's going to be allocated for this purpose. That's why I say how you use Lyfeblood. That's how it can benefit the people on using group economics. That's what I've been talking about for a long time. Using group economics to your benefit, to your advantage. Create those short-term goals. Create those long-term goals for your city community, for that economic growth in small business to mid-size. Start a fund to start offering money to the community through Lyfeblood.com. Group economics. I spoke about it before with this money that's not filtering itself down to to small business. We have to start seeking the power within ourselves and the people next to us. As I said, you have to think like bees. You have to think as a collective. You have to think as a unit and start moving in that direction. Be water, my friend. Bend like a reef in the wind. Be able to adapt to your situation. I'm not saying you can't get money from the government because that's your tax money, but you have to do something in the meantime, between time, as you force the government to give you the money that you should be getting. And I say Lyfeblood is not on an individual level, but on a group level. Think in that manner. Another way you could do it, if you don't get what you want, boycott stores, boycott institutions. It's useful. That's the other flip side of how you can use economics. Seek alternative places to visit and economically starve these areas out. Force your local government to concede. Engage in several days of zero purchasing or redirect your purchasing power to businesses that support you. I don't care. It could be small business. It could be large. It could be Target for all I care. If you want to put your money in Target, we're going to give that money to Target. Give it to them. Because there's a greater plan that you're trying to achieve. Because I want to starve you out, I'll give it to Target. If Target acts up, all right, we're going to give it to that person or to that company or to this small business. And all the while start setting up your network within small business to provide those products or services for you. And then once that's on the ground, you go to them. Here's another way. Instead of driving to work, bike to work. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy. But then when you bike to work, what do? You don't spend money on gas. Okay? You don't spend money on taxes because it's sales tax. Okay? Bike to work. It's good. It's two birds with one stone. You exercise and you don't have to spend money on gas. That's another business that you can economically starve. To get what you want. Because it's not all about throwing a bottle or breaking glass or turning shit over. That's you getting that energy out initially, but then now you got to start planning and strategizing. Next thing you can do is be active in creating local banks, credit unions. Put your money in there. If you want to support black business, put your money in a black bank or a small bank. Bank there. We have to be able to change our behavior. We have to change it. It's as simple as a choice. It's as simple as a choice and as easy as stretching a rubber band. It doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be laborious. It doesn't have to be pushing a mountain up a rock. A rock up a mountainside. It doesn't have to be hard. It's as simple as a choice. When Gucci, let's say, for example, will put out that turtleneck, and it was kind of like blackface. And all the other brands that was doing racist things, all they were doing, I saw that they were building out, it was called outrage marketing. I call it outrage marketing. They throw something out there, it's gonna get people upset. They get free marketing because everybody starts talking about them. And all of a sudden they're gonna put out some apology letter, and it's from the PR department. All of a sudden everybody's gonna just relax and be like, but they apologized so I could continue to buy Gucci. No. Once they do that, cut them off. There is no Gucci, and that goes for everyone, even those rappers and the R&B singers. Because let me tell you, after Gucci did all that, what happened? Rappers are still talking that same fuck shit. Yo, Gucci, I'm gonna wear Gucci, Gucci, Gucci. Some artists was burning the Gucci shirts. Shout out to 50. But everybody just got lulled into, but it's Gucci. Who gives a fuck about Gucci? You make Gucci. Hip hop made Gucci. We're the influencers. We make Gucci hot. We making Gucci cost the amount of money that it make, and for people to spend that amount of money for a bullshit t-shirt. Make your own brands and big them up like they've been in business for 1,000 years. And they equate to Gucci. You make them what they are. The rapper, the artist, you give them value. Fuck Gucci and Fendi and all of them. Support a black brand, a clutch, a bag, a t-shirt. It doesn't have to be a t-shirt. It could be a high brand where that fashion designer is hotness. Big them up like nobody's business. Put them in your videos and buy that. Let it be symbolic. Toss Gucci out and support those black businesses that are in fashion. That's what I'm talking about. Behavior. That's the difference. But you got a lot of half-ass shoe shuffling people out there. All they want to do is flash their grills, the diamond grills, and whatever shit on their wrist, and that's all they want to do. They don't really care about what they do to money. They got money all of a sudden. I don't give a damn. That's why there is no. That's why we can't have the progress that we want, because everybody else is doing their own thing. This individualism, and it's that American individualism that's killing the unity within the black community. I'm gonna do my own thing. Shit, I don't care. That's Gucci. I'm rocking Gucci. I don't care. They apologize. Shoot, I'm gonna put that in my next video. This is a classic example of how you keep getting beaten. And fuck the artist. If you feel that they not staying on top of things, you feel they not staying on code, you get at them. You shame them. Put them on blast. Be like, yo, son, what you a slave to Gucci now? You a Gucci slave? You a Fendi slave? Hey, why don't you put your man on here? Put this dude on. Gucci don't give two shits about you. And right now, as I speak, right now they are cursing your name. They just doing it without the cameras around, without the whatever audio recordings happen. They probably saying, yeah, we really made some money off of that time. All we had to do is stole some money, put out an apology, and then sales is great. You got to strategize. I'm just giving you guys a couple of points, rough points. And I'm sure if I sit down with some people, we can hash out a plan, we can hash out a strategy, and people have to stick with it. They have to stick to it. And we can really make it structured. I'm just tossing out some ideas to you guys. This is how Lyfeblood, in the spirit of Lyfeblood, how Lyfeblood can work for the people. I say it all the time on my IG, group economics, global community, local community, work together, dollar power. You are a lifer. This is what it means to be a lifer, and fitting yourself within that code. Not just not for black people, it's for everyone. For them folks in Berlin, for those Native Americans, for the people in Africa, for the people in Eastern Europe. It goes for everyone. This is how you can free yourself, by looking towards each other. All right. So I'm going to get into this conversation with my brother, Tatenda. I'm messing up his name. I'm sorry, Tatenda. I'm sorry, bro. I'm not great with names. It takes me like 5 or 6 times. That's everybody. Not because it's your name, bro. I do that with everybody. I'm better with faces than I am with names. So Tatenda Mungofa, that's my man with the car Mureza. So we're gonna get into some music. And we're just gonna roll out on this thing. So this show is gonna be a little bit, man, because this is an important show. This is an important show for giving a direction of where people will go. Once we start putting things in perspective here, when the city starts settling down, and I'm hoping I'm willing to have a conversation with anybody. I don't care, around the world, across America, I'm willing to have a conversation. You want change? This is where we start. And then we're gonna get in this interview with my man Tatenda Mungofa and see how South Africa is setting it off in the automotive industry. All right, let's get to this music. So this music, what we have for you is we have this song that's coming up with Pharaohe Monch. My man blessed me with this track. It's called Same Shit, Different Toilet. It's featuring Styles P, and they did a couple songs together. This was recorded a few years ago, but in light of everything that's happening with the protesters that's going on, he felt this was a fitting time to release this joint. It was produced by Marco Polo. So the song will be released June 5th on Pharaoh's Tresca Decaphobia imprint. So go check this song out, called Same Shit, Different Toilet. And right behind that joint, we have Coco Sarai. Yeah, man, real cool sister. She came out with the song like last year, but I thought it was dope when I heard it. It's called Coffee in the Morning. So it's real dope. She got a lot of style, man. A lot of sassy style. So it's dope. So check out Styles P. So check out Pharaohe Monch, Same Shit, Different Toilet, featuring Styles P. And right up behind these brothers is Coco Sarai with Coffee in the Morning. All right, check it out.
It's GCOM Radio.
I am one of the flyers
on iHeartRadio.
Peace, God, I can't call it. Same shit, different toilet. When will the struggle end? Square one, we're back again. I'm about to lose control. What up? Please ease my soul. I'm gonna kick me again. They're burning crucifixes on my lawn again. They wanna hang a nigga like an ornament. It's tormenting. Morning over yesterday, still yawning inside of a tournament. I can't win. Good morning, shotgun blast passed by my head. I'm a man, I tell you. I'm a man, I say. Pushed my daughter and my wife in the closet and slid my son up under the bed. Filled the Smith & Wesson with lead. Looked in the mirror, said, breathe. Now come on, breathe. I'm about to bring 6 Klansmen to their knees. A cold story that my old man told me. If you're wondering why I have so much pent up hostility inside of my soul and the memory still molds me, just take a glimpse into the mind of an OG. Underneath the oak tree in the shade where I hang at. That's the same spot my great grand used to hang at. Peace, God, I can't call it. Same shit, different toilet. When will the struggle go? Square one, we're back again. I'm about to lose control. Please ease my soul. I'm gonna kick me again.
What up, P? Same shit, different toilet. Can't call it long line of alcoholics in the fam. My man gave me work, and I sat up on the strip and got knocked. A long line of homies in the can. Jail is the ship that don't sail, that hold the slaves. And the judge have you asking for bail like it's the wave. Like that's the wave. Meaning a slave even pays and be caged in, which is motherfucking insane. That's insane. It's like we picking cotton again. 45's a Klansman, shit is rotten again. They gave us AIDS, gave us crack, now they plotting again. That boy ran, so they shot him, then they shot him again. That's sad. The same shit, make the tissue new. Make it 400 years, let's make the issues new. Why you love a dead black visual? I'm about to grab my gun, shit is critical. The devils is evil and all miserable.
Peace, God, I can't call it. Same shit, different toilet. When we're on the struggle. Square one, we're back again. I'm about to lose control. What up? Please ease my soul, or I'm gonna get me a gun.
We are the most beautiful creatures in the whole world, black people. I mean that in every sense, outside and inside. And to me, we have a culture that is surpassed by no other civilization. We don't know anything about it.
Coffee in the morning, in the evening time. Oh.
Listen up.
Turn up. You're listening to GCOM Radio.
About that pretty black, it's so defined out. Swear to God, I shiver when I see it shining. I do. You are beauty personified, it's true. And all that deep dark heaven, take me there, ooh, I wanna go with you. All that deep black heaven, take me there, ooh, I wanna go with you. All that sweet dark heaven, take me there, I swear that I love it, I do.
This is what compels me to compel them. And I will do it by whatever means necessary.
Coffee in the morning, in the evening time, oh, something about that pretty black, it's so refined, swear to God, I shiver when I see it shining, I do. You are beauty personified, it's true. And all that deep dark heaven, take me there, ooh, I wanna go with you. All that deep black heaven, take me there, ooh, I wanna go with you. All that sweet dark heaven, take me there, I swear that I love it, I do. I do, 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 I do.
Why am I so insistent upon giving out to them that blackness, that black power, that black pushing them to identify with black culture? I think that's what you're asking. I have no choice over it.
Deep in my soul, it do.
Yeah, that was Pharaohe Monch featuring Styles P with Same Shit, Different Toilet. And of course, you heard Coco Sarai with Coffee in the Morning. I'm looking forward to hearing some more good stuff from Coco Sarai. How did this song get away from us? I don't know how, man. But her video is out. Go on YouTube, look up Coco Sarai, Coffee in the Morning. Really hot joint. And shout out to Pharaohe Monch for dropping that song too. So all right, so we're gonna get right back into this interview with Tatenda Mungofa. All right, let's go.
You're in the phone zone with Nova Phoenix on GCOM Radio.
Okay, we're good to go. Okay, I'm your host, Nova Phoenix. You are listening to In the Phone Zone on GCOM Radio. Right now we have a special guest with us. Actually, he's the first interview that we've had for In the Phone Zone, and it's a beautiful thing. And we have Tatenda Mungofa. He is the founder of the Mureza Prime 8, a new budding car company in the continent of Africa. Right now, he's making his presence known, and he has great things in the coming years for this particular brand. So we welcome Mr. Mungofa. How you doing, Mr. Mungofa?
Nova, how are you doing? I'm great.
Fantastic. So we're inviting Mr. Mungofa to give us his ideas and his vision on where he wants to take the brand in the coming years. All right, Mr. Mungofa, how are you?
Like I said, I'm good. Today has been one of the great days in the entrepreneurship journey when you've got a win underneath your belt. So I'm glad for you to be hosting me on your show. It's a great platform, as I've read up on it, and I look forward to participating and adding value as best as I can.
Fantastic. So tell me about yourself, Mr. Mungofa. Where are you from? Where are you born?
Right. Born and bred in Zimbabwe. Then I migrated to South Africa in pursuit of my dream of manufacturing cars, because suffice to say that in South Africa, the automotive industry is at an advanced stage according to global standards. So I had a passion to design cars from a very early age. I think as 7 years old. And I was always getting into trouble at school because I was sketching in every textbook, every piece of paper I could find. I was always drawing cars. So I pursued it as much as I could to make it a reality, and hence Mureza Auto Company was born. So the company and me are one person. We are the same thing. We have the same drive, if I were to state that way. So. From an African perspective, you'd say I'm just one of those people who believe that it was possible for us to make our own brand of cars that can be commercially viable.
So how was your childhood growing up? You said you started designing or sketching vehicles at 7?
Yes. Well, my dad is a mechanic, so he used to have a subscription for a very popular magazine in the region called Car Magazine. So I would see a lot of car sketches in there, and that's when the passion was born. But at home, we used to take apart cars, put them together, and I think that's where the mechanics of it really came to play in my mind, to understand what a car is supposed to do, how it's supposed to work, what certain components of a car were supposed to do. So when I would sit down and I would close my eyes, I would envision what the future car would look like, and then I would try to put it on paper. So it wasn't really easy, to say the least, because there is not much access to that information, especially from Africa. It's like a secret. It's like the trade secret of the automotive industry, and there wasn't much to go on. You need to be really passionate and to have some investigative skills for you to get to the bottom of how a car is really made, all the ingredients, all the pieces you need for the puzzle to really work. So I made it my life's journey from an early age to be able to acquire the information. And when I got old enough after high school, I enlisted in university for a couple of weeks. And the African situation, or the situation at the time in the country, didn't allow for me to really sit back and wait for me to get my studies completed. So I decided to go the entrepreneurship route, and then I discovered there was another side of me, the guy who could sell something, So I got into the selling of IT equipment, stationery, migrated into vehicles eventually, where I started to learn more about why people then buy cars. So it's been a twofold journey for me. I would say the first half of my life, when I was in high school or when I was in school, I was really trying to do my best to qualify to be a car designer in terms of educational qualification, to have an engineering background. But on the home front, I was living that life on a day-to-day. I was living that life practically. I would say I practically grew up in a car, and to some extent, I would just sit in a car for 8 hours, just thinking, why is this door handle here instead of it being somewhere else? So those are some of the things that maybe you embed yourself with when you are trying to do something, and it grew on me. Cars grew on me, I would say. And I've never really regretted it. It's my passion, it's my life, and I enjoy it every day.
So your father definitely the way he sees you now, he's not surprised.
I have conversations with him. He's actually my mentor when it comes to manufacturing cars. When I run into a problem, I always know that he's on speed dial. I say, hey, Dad, there's something happening here. I don't know what's happening, so can you please explain to me? And my dad actually gave me the best training that you can ever give to someone. I remember way back when I started driving, and you give me these very difficult cars to drive, because cars are being fixed, so they've got problems with them. So he says, no, drive this one, and it taught me a lot. How systems fail in a car, and you'd send you somewhere far. When you go that far, and you call him, Dad, but this car is broken. I say, yeah, bring it back. You took it there, bring it back. I'm like, okay, so how am I supposed to bring it back? So literally, he was teaching me to fix the car as I was driving it, and that was active problem solving for me, which was a very good experience. So now when I speak to him, he's like, yeah, you remember that day when I sent you with that car? That's exactly what it is. So for me, I'm like, okay, yeah, now I remember. So it's a very healthy teaching that I got, if you would say that.
Right. And your mother, how's she taking that?
So my mom is responsible for my religious life mostly, because my mom, there's no woman I know who prays as much as my mom does, and she used to wake up every day at 4 a.m. in the morning, prays for her children, prays for everything. So growing up, she founded me in the principles of Christianity very strongly. She would teach me how to be a people's person, how to do right by everyone, how to be responsible, how to live in society correctly, and there were plenty of lessons for me to learn from that. So she became like the backbone of my spiritual walk, because I feel it's also important. We are physical beings, yes, but there's also a spiritual element to who we are. And if your spiritual compass is not helping you reach your full potential, it becomes a huge problem for you to realize your destiny. So my mom was that person. She still is that person. Whenever I'm feeling low, she's always on speed dial. Now I call her, say, okay, I've had a terrible week, or I'm going through this thing, or we are now heading for a next phase of business or something like that. She walks the journey with me. So I'm very blessed to be having both parents supportive of the dreams that I chase. Although if I were to tell them that a couple of years back, they would have shouted with me, scolded me, and say, hey, what's this that you're trying to do? And I'll say, no, I want to make a car. I want to manufacture my car. Say, okay, who has manufactured the car in Africa? Stop this nonsense. As much faith as they had, but they saw it in me, they believed it, but I would simply say maybe it was the fear of failing that people would say, okay, maybe try something else, because I was smart. I was a smart kid in school, and I was above average, so they thought I should have been a doctor or something else, and I said, nah, I think cars are what I was meant for.
and based on that, how did this idea of the Mureza come about?
Well, Mureza, to define the name, it's a Shona word that means a flag. So because of the experiences I had growing up, it wasn't all rosy. Some friends would even ridicule me and say, what do you think Mureza will do? So I tried to prove a point, but not to them, but to myself. That
you said a flag, right?
It's like a flag. A banner, okay. Right?
Okay.
Like your national flag. So I said we want to fly the flag of the automotive industry in Africa. So that's really what our brand represents, and it kind of stuck with me. When you're doing what is called ideation sketches, when you're trying to design something, you need to have a logo, an emblem for that thing. And because of my surname, it was Mungofa, I took the M from there, because normally that's what most people do. They take their name and use that. But for me, my name didn't really make sense. I needed something that would be marketable. So I watched a lot of Top Gear, the British Top Gear with Jeremy Clarkson and all of that. So I would imagine Jeremy Clarkson saying the name of the company before I designed something. So I came up with a nice logo with an M, and I started to think of words that would make sense. So Mureza, I also wanted it to be in a native language, an African language, because we're an African brand. So there's Italian car brands, they've got Italian names. German car brands, they've got German names. American car brands, they've got American names. So it's only proper for an African car brand to have an African name. So I settled on Mureza because it had so many things. A banner or a flag is something you can see from afar. So we wanted that aspect to be visible in our brand. And over and above that, there is that element of it being the most prominent object in any locality. So in the nation of Zim or South Africa, flags are always there outside parliament buildings or important landmarks. You always see a flag there, but it's very clear, it's very distinct. So we wanted to be that, wanted to be unique, and that came out as our payoff line to say we are untamed. We are not like anyone else. We are in the wild of Africa. People think Africa is a wild place. So it became a theme that we married to the brand name itself. So we are untamed. This is an untamed flag. It represents an untamed continent, and it has got so much potential in this particular industry, and we're trying to build it from the ground up and raising this flag. So the process of raising the flag is what then captured me most in terms of how we do business as a system.
I hear you. Now you have a team. Who are the other co-founders that you do have that you work with?
Yes. So when I migrated to South Africa, I also got in touch with some brilliant young minds, and the automotive industry was always polarized or biased towards male figures. But I met some very brilliant minds. My co-founders, there are two of them. The other one is called Piladi Chilwani. She does agribusiness. She did agribusiness and other things. So we met in an entrepreneurship boot camp, and we became friends. And I started sharing my dream of the Mureza, and she became a part of it. She became supportive. It was a challenge that she wanted to participate in. And the other co-founder, her name is Tulisa Sosibo. So she was partnered with another colleague of mine in business. So she's very precise in terms of project management, organizing stuff, and all of that. So the three of us, we sort of like connected at the same time, and we had this thing in common of trying to bring out the best out of Africa from whatever industry we're coming about. And we landed on the Mureza project as okay, let's now take on the big boys. Let's give these things life. Let's give ourselves a proper platform. So that's when we decided to make the primate, bring it to market and all of that. So we've got two female co-founders in the project, and myself. So basically, the three of us who lead the team. And we've got several other guys who work with us in different disciplines, professionals in their own right. But we also try to grow talent, because maybe it's a passion we share from an African perspective that not everyone has got access to such kind of information. And we try to do our best to incorporate even the people who seemingly don't qualify but have the passion. We believe in passion first and train the skill later, because skills can be learned, especially in the AI generation production of any components. You can automate so many things, and you can train anyone the skill to manage that. So I've got a great team, I would say, a very brilliant team, very, very focused team, and I would bet on them every other day. They are my reason. Yeah.
I hear you. Hey, fantastic. That's beautiful. So in order to get this Mureza off the ground, you made a deal with SAPA, and an Iranian car manufacturer. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, to manufacture cars is for most people it's not your day-to-day kind of a business or day-to-day kind of a project. It needs some specialized skill and equipment. So we were lacking on the equipment side because I'm a designer by profession. The other one is a project coordinator director. The other one is a business development specialist. So we realized that we need to cover areas where we are weak. So in terms of technical capacity of research and development, yes, I can design the car. Yes, we can market the concept, but we need someone to give us technical capability. So we tried different options that were accessible to us. We went to the Europeans, we went to the Americans, we went to the Chinese, we went to the Indians. All of them had one thing in common. They were very secretive. They didn't want us to know the process. They just wanted us to give us the product, which in our view didn't help Africa, because then we just become a market. Instead of us building an industry or creating a value chain, we would not be able to do that. And fortuitously, one of the colleagues that I had met in South Africa on my first coming here, they actually supply us with certain components, spring components in the vehicles. They're like the largest manufacturer of springs in the automotive industry in South Africa. So they then made the introduction to Cyper, who had a common vision with us at the time, and they took us in like a big brother in the automotive industry because they have got over 50 years experience in manufacturing vehicles. They did that with some European brands and then some South Korean brands, which they're currently working with now. And they saw what we saw for the African market, and they also believed in our vision that we could do it for ourselves, but we needed some guidance. And I mean, our average age in our company is like 28 years old, and to have such young minds working on such a big project, we needed some reinforcement in the technical and experience department, I would say. So Cyber became that. They brought their 50+ years onto the project that we had, and we saw the areas that we needed to improve on, and they gave us that support. So now we've got at our disposal a factory that can produce close to 500,000 units of vehicles. So that's what we're going to launch in the near future based on the Primate. So it gives us a platform for us to develop ourselves and provide a solution for the African automotive industry at the same time.
Fantastic.
So in terms of an entrepreneurship move, for us that was the best move that we could have done. And normally ventures of that nature, they are supposed to cost, billions of US dollars. But the ingenuity of what happened in that season saved us a lot of money and put us at a very advanced stage.
That's fantastic. That's really fantastic. All right, so we're going to continue this conversation with Mr. Mungofa, and we're going to get to some music now. So stay tuned, folks, for more of this beautiful brother and the Mureza.
Yeah, so let's just take a little break from this interview and listen to some more good music. It's a real good interview, man. I was digging this conversation with Mr. Mungofa, man. Really dope. So let's get into this and we'll get right back into this interview. So we're going to listen to this bonus joint, Maui Max. We played the song before. It's EWOF. Everything's going to work out fine. I didn't get that quite right, but that's all good. Everything's going to work out fine. And right up behind that dude is Darius Logan with Twist Up off his project, the KLTR tape. So listen to these two guys, and we're going to get right back into this interview. All right? So stay with us. All right. Peace.
Oh man.
Check this out.
We're going in with another one.
It's on.
GCOM Radio.
When I close my eyes, I gotta thank the Lord. Wouldn't shit for right if I ain't working for it. I made up my mind, I gotta give me more. Gotta free my mind, I gotta cut them cords. Everything works out fine. Young niggas stay on your grind. Gotta put your trust in time. Gotta take risks, cross that line. If it finds you, take that sign. I done claimed this shit is mine. We ain't tripping on no cosign. Organize why shit align. Niggas want respect that they ain't earned yet. Niggas in the business that they ain't learned yet. Say you the realest rapper, but you ain't said no words yet. Don't understand the fact he accountable for the words said. Everything I spit, I live, ain't gotta doubt me. Never claimed no street shit, but ask about me. I ain't no slouch, I paid my dues, I did it proudly. From A to B, that Chevy got me with high mileage. Was broke as fuck, no pot to piss, but that's the past now. Can't trip on that, look at my C's, what I'ma pass down. I'm thinking smarter, working harder in my bag now. A real hustler, deserve the shit I have now. When I close my eyes, I gotta thank the Lord. Wouldn't shit for right if I ain't working for it. I made up my mind, I gotta give me more. Gotta free my mind, I gotta cut them cords. Everything works out fine. Young niggas stay on your grind. Gotta put your trust in time. Gotta take risks, cross that line. If it finds you, take that sign. I done claimed this shit is mine. We ain't tripping on no cosign. Organize why shit align. It kinda threw me off to see what I become. Thought they was better off without me. I ain't my mama only son. Ain't see no future like I'm Russell. Feel I fell when I was young. Forgave myself, got disciplined. Don't talk, just do and get it done. I ain't hating, I'm just saying these niggas ain't real. They get a deal, first thing they say is they itching to kill. Mr. Me 2B, you fake shit get revealed. I stand out being me, no approval to feel I got a pill. Stick to your story, niggas gon' relate. It take a little longer, but you know that we fashionably late. I'm dedicated, locked in, I got the foundation straight. Got out that slump, yeah, it's a fact that this rap shit is fake. Can't wait. When I close my eyes, I gotta thank the Lord. Wouldn't shit for right if I ain't working for it. I made up my mind, I gotta give me more. Gotta free my mind, I gotta cut them cords. Everything works out fine. Young niggas stay on your grind. Gotta put your trust in time. Gotta take risks, cross that line. If it finds you, take that sign. I done claimed this shit is mine. We ain't tripping on no cosign. Organize why shit align.
Oh my God. I want to hear more. GCOM Radio.
Stereo slogan. All my jewelry on when I'm at the house. At the house. Tell me what's wrong, are you acting out? You acting out. Push a star, somebody keep say in the pouch. In the pouch. Slight flex, I remember I was sleeping on the couch. Sleeping on the couch. Sleeping on the twister. I got my shoulders moving side to side. Wrist up. I got my shoulders moving side to side. Twister. I'm feeling sober, so I'm down to ride. Twister. I'm feeling sober, so I'm down to. Do you like my quarantine fit? Do you like how I step, how I move? I ain't tryna cap it, I'm the truth. Whenever I'm kicking it with you. Do you like my quarantine fit? Do you like how I step, how I move? Yeah, yeah. Shorty, no cap, you the truth. Yeah, yeah. Every time I'm zooming in with you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Twister. I got my shoulders moving side to side. Wrist up. I got my shoulders moving side to side. Hey, they paying more than compliments for me to rap. Compliments of you in the city that put me on the map. Compliments of that energy, karma giving back. I done gave all these compliments, God paying me back. So much pressure on me, I know I deserve. Why I never feel like I deserve the kind words. Strange paradox of living in this blind earth. When all my time's gone, I think I know what time's worth. I wanna know the steps of living with regret. Forgetting the old flame is like cashing a check. Adulting's ironic, just short of iconic. Letting your first love go is like changing pajamas. I know what I say in songs don't stay in songs. I'm learning that the key to life is moving on. I learned there's no such thing as doing it wrong. Unless you're doing it all, then you should share it. I'm on Jory on when I'm at the house. At the house. Tell me what's wrong, are you racking out? You racking out. Push a start, somebody keep say in the pouch. In the pouch. Slight flex, I remember I was sleeping on the couch. Sleeping on the couch. Sleeping on a twister. I got my shoulders moving side to side. Wrist up. I got my shoulders moving side to side. Twister. I'm feeling sober, so I'm down to ride. Twister. I'm feeling sober, so I'm down. We can do it every night, yeah. Keep it light, yeah. Once or twice, yeah, yeah. I'ma be a quarantine, babe, for what he say. I'm on replay, yeah. I ain't gonna fall asleep on you. Big spoon underneath of you. Love it on and love it off of you, okay. I'm a jury on when I'm at the house. At the house. Tell me what's wrong, are you racking out? You racking out. Push a start, somebody keep say in the pouch. In the pouch. Slight flex, I remember I was sleeping on the couch. Sleeping on the couch. Sleeping on it, yeah. Twister. I got my shoulders moving side to side. Twister. I got my shoulders moving side to side. Twister. I'm feeling sober, so I'm down to ride. Twister. I'm feeling sober, so I'm down to. Do you like my quarantine fit? Do you like how I step, how I move? I ain't tryna cap it, I'm the truth. Whenever I'm kicking it with you. Do you like my quarantine fit? Do you like how I step, how I move? Yeah, yeah. Shorty, no cap, you're the truth. Yeah, yeah. Every time I'm zooming in with you. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Twister. I got my shoulders moving side to side. Twister. I got my shoulders moving side to side. Twister. I'm feeling sober, so I'm down to ride. Twister. When this song's over, then I'm down to. This is it.
Take control. This is GCOM Radio, powered by Lyfeblood.com. Come join, be a Lyfer. Practice dollar power and build financial independence.
Okay, that was Maui Max with EWOF. Everything works out fine, folks. Everything was going to work out fine. And then they have Darius Logan, Twist Up off that KLTR tape. Go and check out those two brothers, man. Big ups to both of them. We're not going to do, oh yeah, by the way, we're not going to do Business of the Week or the news you need to know. We're just going to go straight into this interview and gobble it up, folks. Gobble it up. All right. So check out this interview. All right.
Okay, we are back, and we're going to get into further with the Mureza and what's going on in the mind of Tatenda Mungofa. So, all right, so now that you are the owner, the founder of this beautiful vehicle, what impact do you expect to have with this new brand?
Nova, that question for me has got so many answers, depending on who is listening and what they anticipate to gain from the response. But firstly, I'll address it from an African perspective. So, like I said previously, we want to build a value chain in Africa. Basically, this means us being able to make this product in Africa. I mean, there's plenty of mineral resources, there's plenty of human resources, there's plenty of market for the product. We would be able to stabilize the economy of Africa. That's maybe one of the first objectives we would have by creating a value chain anchored on that product. And on the other side, we are focusing on a mindset shift for the Africans themselves, because most Africans, they import pre-used cars, like cars that have exhausted their lifespan, because maybe that's what they are able to afford on the continent. So it's a huge industry, and people get cars from Asia that have been used 2010, and then they've been dumped, and those are the cars that are bought on the continent. So it's a very huge problem in terms of pollution. There are safety risks in themselves, because you can't really give a warranty on such vehicles and stuff like that. So by making our own products, or by making our own vehicles on the continent, it sort of like shifts the mindset of people from owning a vehicle that is a second-hand vehicle, in truth, or a car that has been dumped, to owning an actually brand new vehicle. To give someone that opportunity. My dad, he bought a brand new car like way back in 1992, and the whole family celebrated. But that stopped, maybe around the year 2010. There's no more production of vehicles close by, and it's difficult for an African person to purchase a brand new vehicle. All they can afford is that imported vehicle, which by regulation is not supposed to be sold as a vehicle. So we're trying to cover that gap. So with our company, with Mureza, this is one of my key focus areas. And also just to give hope to the nation, just to give hope to the continent that, okay, we can compete at a global scale. We have got what it takes. No disrespect to the guys who have been doing what they're supposed to be doing. But as long as we all breathe oxygen, I believe we've got equal opportunity. There's 24 hours in everyone's day. So if you can make a car, we can make a car. And it's not a matter of who is better than the other person. It's a matter of, can you do it for yourself? Because that self-sustaining mindset will help the economy or the continent turn a real corner in terms of mindset. And the population is growing. So the question becomes, what are we going to leave for the future generation? Are we going to leave them as a market for other continents? And the other continents, suffice to say, who are really milking that cow or taking advantage of it. And I think, when I say, okay, tomorrow's generation, what will they be making? So if we succeed in making a car which is seemingly very difficult, maybe someone will come and say, but maybe we can make aeroplanes. Maybe someone will say, we can make X, Y, and Z. Innovation comes in different ways. And that's how really the world transforms. The world never stands still. It never sits still for anyone. So innovation has to come to promote more innovation. I'm a fan of Henry Ford. So I would say he was a five-fold entrepreneur. He was a social entrepreneur, as an industrial revolutionist, he was an economic entrepreneur, and he was a technological entrepreneur. And he built a brand. So he was a brand entrepreneur, all in one person. Because before there was the Ford Motor Company and the production line and the production system, people were opting for faster horses, or people were opting for thoroughbreds. And I saw a picture recently where in New York, one of the streets, there was horses. It was like there was 1,000 horses in only one car. And in 15 years, Henry Ford came and changed that perspective, and there were 1,000 cars and only one horse. And that sort of transformation built other industries around it. So I think it's Africa's time to also realize that we can transform. I mean, I can give you another example, which is Japan. It's just a channel of islands that used to farm rice. But from there comes Toyota, one of the biggest car manufacturers on the continent. On the planet. So for me, that's my dream, to bring such transformation to this continent of Africa.
Correct me if I'm correct me if I'm wrong. There are other car manufacturers in sub-Saharan Africa. There's Akira, a state enterprise, partly funded by the Ugandan government. The Yonosan Motors funded by Ifediaso Chuguma for the Nigerian market. The Kantanka by Dr. Nkwadwo Salfo Kantanka, and those are a few. How do you set yourself apart from these other brands that are out?
First off, I applaud them for their efforts, because most of these companies started before us. And in terms of what sets us apart from them, for us, we are not thinking only of one country by country. As you have mentioned, these brands, they sort of like are territorial in their own countries, you know. But Africa has got 54 countries to make up the continent. We need to be able to make a brand and a product that's appealing to everyone, not even just in Africa, even beyond Africa. Hence, going back to the partnership with Lyfer, you need to think globally to address a local problem as well. So what sets us apart in essence is that we are not marketing ourselves as a South African company. We're not marketing ourselves as a Zimbabwean company. We're marketing ourselves as an African company. And on our team, we've got people from different African countries who contribute to the development of our brand. And over and above that, it's just this theory that we want to break the inferiority complex of manufacturing products in Africa. We are not in the business of, how can I put it? I'm trying to find the correct set of words to clearly define the distinction between what they are attempting to do and what we are attempting to do without casting a shadow on them. Yeah. What we are endeavoring to do is to build a system, not just a product. So the system we are aiming to build is not copying another system. Hence, again, I come back to the word untamed. So we believe that if you are able to make a car, someone is able to make a tire, like the tires for a car, right? Someone is supposed to make the windows. And these are things you make from resources that are there on the continent already. We are not looking to just make a product. We are looking to build a system, a value chain. That's what Mureza is all about. So I think that sets us apart from other brands that are trying to grow a product to compete with other continents. That's not what we're trying to do. We are trying to create a product that serves a purpose for the continent, but also on the bigger picture, adds value to the individuals who are making the product. And I think for us, it's working well in terms of how we integrate ourselves into the market without really having to, to compete in terms of marketing. We don't go and say our car is better than X, Y, and Z. No, we just say our car is made by us according to these specifications. And we do try as best as possible to put in African components into this vehicle as much as possible.
Do you have any other car models under the Mureza?
Yeah, so the Primate is a joint venture, like you said, with Lyfer, because basically they were training us on the technical aspects of bringing a new product to market. So after that, we've got a small pickup truck. In this part of the world, we call it a bakkie. It's a half-ton pickup truck. So this is like the twin. We call it the twin brother of the Primate. The Primate is a full internal combustion engine vehicle. So it's got a petrol engine in it, or what you'd say a gasoline engine in it. So we then have on the pickup concept, we call it a pickup concept. We haven't picked a name for it yet. We'll announce the name as we launch it. But it's going to have 3 platforms to it. It's going to have an ICE, that's an internal combustion engine. It will have a hybrid drivetrain, and it will have a full electric version to the vehicle. So that now is 100% African-owned product, which we have the intellectual property and rights to. We also have the intellectual property rights to the Primate as well in the joint venture agreement. But we are now building our own line of products. So our products are migrating on the pickup segment or on the SUV segment. We have got this small pickup, Next to it, we've got its big brother, which we call the Tusker. That's going to be our flagship model. So we thought it was prudent for us to not risk everything on our product or brand initially without taking the quality aspects, without getting proper feedback from the market. So the feedback we're getting from the primate, from the people who have tested it pre-launch, because we haven't really officially launched it for sale yet. It's going to come up quite soon. Then after that, we're going to have the pickup concept, which is the small one. Then we'll go to the Tusker. So the Tusker now becomes the flagship because it carries an SUV platform on it, which is a big SUV, double cab, and other commercial platforms associated with it. Then we have a luxury model. This one now is like our secret project, which we haven't really marketed. But in the mix to that, we also have a very fun concept, which we call Concept 2020. And that one is also near completion as well. I'm sure if you look it up on our website, we've teased a bit on that particular model, but we think it's going to be a very good car for the African conditions, for the African population, which is fairly young. And we look to grow into other sectors as well in terms of product diversification, maybe your agricultural sector as well. We were prompted to look into that sector because Africa is an agricultural economy by definition. So it makes sense for us to look into such gadgets. But in terms of us marketing, we want to position ourselves as a car manufacturer instead of an agricultural equipment manufacturer. Hence, we lead with the primate and such products.
I think the pickup would do great in the American market from what I've seen. The concept design, I think it's beautiful. I think it's a great looking pickup, or buggy as you say in South Africa. I think once that really starts to get off the ground, I think it could really connect with people over here. So I know that's an eventuality, as you said. You're reaching for a global. Right now, it's going to be Zimbabwe, excuse me, and South Africa. But of course, going to hitting the global stage, it will be the ultimate, objective. But how's the car business in Africa in general? What is it that the average consumer would like?
Well, the average consumer in Africa would like a very fuel efficient and affordable vehicle. Something that carries maybe 5 passengers in it and is able to withstand some tough terrain, because the continent doesn't really have a very good road network currently. But we hope this improves. As we also localize production, this will definitely improve. So the African environment of vehicles, the African market of vehicles is a very vibrant market. I think Africa is at a stage where ownership of the vehicle is more important than what the rest of the world is looking at. I mean, in advanced economies, you've got ride sharing, you've got car subscriptions happening there, which is fair and fine. But Africa, because of where it is now as a continent, I think we are still a couple of years out in terms of that, if ever it is going to be adopted, because cars are status symbols in Africa. I mean, they're items of pride. For most African families, or for most African individuals, a vehicle truly is an asset. They can really put their value and worth into a vehicle. And looking at it geographically, you then realize that the advantage of ownership of a vehicle where there is not much connectivity, you have to travel spans for you to go and see potential business or something like that. And you need to do that conveniently. So a car in Africa does that. It has that convenience factor. However, the brand new cars that are available only service less than 1% of the market, because, truth be told, everyone else cannot afford these vehicles. And I think it's the business model of the existing car manufacturers that were there before us. The cost of developing a car really has not increased that much as maybe it is portrayed. And in Africa, if you try to cover that cost on a product, it just becomes extremely expensive for the market. Hence, it only satisfies, or it only appeals to less than 1%. Now, the 99% is the opportunity space. That's where there is tons of opportunity. And we are talking of a continent that's got well over 1.2 billion people, and the population is only growing. It's said to be the largest population in the world in the next 5 years. So we tend to think in that perspective to say, okay, there's a huge opportunity. There's a 99% opportunity there. You just need to find the correct product to tap into that market. That's what we are really aiming for. And that's where we think the value is in terms of the automotive industry. And I want to mention the parallels, like the systems you need to cater for the sale and maintenance of vehicles to such a market.
So as far as the car business, as far as encouraging the flourishing of, as far as encouraging the flourishing of these new industry that's picking up here, is there any way where the South African government is assisting in pushing us along to help the Mureza and the automotive industry in general?
Definitely, the government is in support. I mean, this is local Africans who are trying to build something of value from the continent, which has got direct benefits in terms of employment. Obviously, governments would be very keen on creating employment, especially in Africa, but also to boost economic activity. Because if you are importing essential economic drivers like vehicles, I mean, vehicles, they are like the bloodstream of the of any economy, because you need to deliver goods, you need to deliver services. So in a space like Africa, the government is a strong stakeholder in everything that we are doing, and there's been a real enabling environment, especially in the case of Mureza, not only in South Africa but also in Zimbabwe and neighboring countries, because our approach, like I said, is an African car manufacturer. So we are looking to integrate into different countries. And right now, as we speak, we are leveraging ourselves in 11 countries, thanks to some connections we have made during this COVID season. So that puts us in a very strategic position. And in the Southern African region, there's a body called the SADC. So it's like the government of governments in the region, or a collection of governments in the region. They interface at a very high level, or we want to interface with them at a very high level in terms of how our product is taken up in the region, and also creating the infrastructure necessary for this venture of ours to become a reality in the region, and also grow in the continent. And I'll also add,
and just for those that don't know what SADC is, SADC is the acronym for South African Development Corporation. Correct me?
I think the correct term is South African Development Committee.
Yes, right. Okay.
So that one is headquartered in Botswana. So there is plenty of inter-country trade that they're trying to promote. Obviously, there's the larger organization, which is the AU, African Union, and there's talk of an open African market. Like a United States of Africa, if I were to put it in that way, in terms of trade. So governments now become key players, because in order for us to be able to sell in 2 countries or 3 countries or 11 countries, we need governments to really support. So the South African government has a very strong export initiative, and our main facility or our main factory being in South Africa, it gives us the opportunity to actually export into all of those 11 countries with their support. And we're already working on a framework of distribution with them. We also partner with maybe lesser known structures in governments. That's your parastatals or colleges. to develop the skill necessary. So I'll make special mention to one particular college that's mandated for the automotive industry here in South Africa. It's called Tshwane University of Technology, or TUT in short. So these colleges, they basically give the skills to students for them to be able to work in the industry, which we think is a very strong pillar in terms of the longevity of our business. Because we can't look at the people we have now as a competent staff. We also need to look at the people we need in the future, and they need to be prepared, they need to be trained. So TUT really becomes a critical partner in that, and in terms of skills development, and also some product development that needs to be done locally. So their support is quite key. Over and above that, there's the design aspect. Me as a designer, I'm also very passionate about that. And there are forums that we're trying to build that raise awareness of the skill of designing, because I think on its own is a good career or prospect, but that's like the heart and soul of the automotive industry. So every product you see as a car starts off as a design in someone's mind. And I think there's no better way to capture African design than from African minds, because they just get the environment better than someone who is maybe trying to Google search what Africa is all about. They know the physical conditions, they know the challenges, they know the terrain better. So a product designed by someone from that kind of environment usually addresses the problem much better. That's my view.
Okay.
Yeah, man. So we giving Jules, man, over here with this interview with my brother, Mr. Mungofa, man. And I didn't plan this, but I'm gonna throw in another song here. It's another bonus track, which just to break it up a little bit and to give it a break with some more rhythm. We're gonna get into Mr. International, little treat here. Oh money. It's gonna be dopeness, you know, Mr. International. I haven't played him in a while, so we're gonna come up with this brother. All right, so here it is, and we're gonna be right back.
Mr. T. Y'all check it out, y'all.
Here's a bonus. You heard it before.
Yeah.
Here we go again. Serving that heat. Now turn it up. GCOM Radio.
Papa no give me shit. Papa gon' make it bless me, so my future be lit. I want to buy Porsche, casket for Q-Locks, designer shoebox, diamonds on new watch, invest in business, my money get interest, it is go still vex, then money go get less. Oh yeah, look your coco, you know, so you know walk on the low. You can hate to be promo, I ain't worried about you niggas at la choco. Back alerts on my iPhone, see the money when I go send home. Up a day, multi check, so I put in assets. Want the money, want the money. Give me the money, give me the money. Why are the money? Why are the money? Cash out the money, cash out the money. Oh, lolly shit, oh, lolly shit. Oh, petty wallet, petty wallet. Get myself together cause life's a puzzle. Yeah, I know come to struggle. So everything I get, I go flip and double. I'm on mega flex like muscle. Though I keep it humble, they go wish I fumble. Made it through the jungle, no be me go crumble. Get money by the bundle, I go make them tumble. Shallow, Shoni Shai Sheko Go. You want no go, go chop, no be solo. I'ma living life is the coco. I go live a life, it's the sorrows, but zeros, yeah. It's that motivation. Now you go hustle hard for your elevation. No go look nobody out for your validation. Go focus on yourself, be your concentration. Me, I go make this money. Came in up by walking, they send for mommy. My family go there, no go need to worry. More blessings on blessings, you go sweet like honey. Want the money, want the money. Give me the money, give me the money. Why are the money? Why are the money? Cash out the money, cash out the money.
Ká lọ ṣòro ṣó wọlé yóò mọ̀ káwọn bọ́ọ̀sì wá ṣáná wọlé. Oh yeah, Z-Money ló sọ̀rọ̀ náà di ewé jókòó of Chicago land wọn ti sọ fún yín ewé tí ó bá cash routing number ó pé nìyẹn ẹ̀yin ò mọ̀ oh yeah FOB records àwa náà wà ń bẹ FOB to the world wọn ti sọ fún yín oh yeah àti ṣàṣẹ wọlé àti ṣàgbó wọlé oh yeah olóṣogbo wọn tún yapa lọ́dọ̀ wa ẹ mọ̀wé ń lọ owó yapa ní àyìn oh yeah let's go.
Sounding off around the world. You are listening to GCOM Radio.
Okay, we have returned with Mr. Mungofa talking about the Mureza. I think it's a beautiful vehicle from the pictures I've seen. I can't wait for it to hit the market, even though I'm from the United States of America. But the success in South Africa and Zimbabwe means that there can be further success in other markets, in other regions. And I always see things in long term and where it can go. And it definitely can have a place in the States market. And I have a couple more questions for you, Mr. Mungofa. And for you, just pick your brain on things that may be in relation of the Mureza or from South Africa, Zimbabwe. Now, do you have any other passions you would like to explore once you feel comfortable the Mureza has become successful?
Well, definitely. I'm a person who enjoys challenges. So it's only fair for me to look for new challenges once we have established something that is self-sustaining. So quite recently we've been faced with a COVID-19 pandemic, and it has seriously disrupted how the world operates. So my team and I, we got embedded into a project. We were attempting to design a ventilator for ourselves, and I quite enjoyed the project. We did it maybe in like 48 hours, and we're looking to develop these ventilators in partnership with other people. But I spoke to so many professionals in the medical field. I spoke to so many people, and I realized that there's more we can do, on this earth. Yes, my passion has been cars, and maybe will always be cars. But things like the health sector in Africa, it's got a very huge weakness to it. And if we don't step up as Africans and explore certain solutions to those problems, will always be at the mercy of whatever pandemic would come, if it would come again. So it's kind of a space I'm looking to grow into the medical engineering space, if you were to call it that, and to see what comes up from there. So already there's plans that I've put across that would see us in that space in the near future, once things gain momentum on the main project. But also in terms of developing systems, it's quite odd that a continent like Africa and the brilliant minds that it has produced, and where the world is in terms of the fourth industrial revolution, the Internet of Things and the likes, that Africa can have such a disparity in terms of development. When you go into the cities, there's some modernization that has happened there. But in some parts of Africa, people don't even access internet. I wouldn't say participate in the telecoms game, But there's other sectors that I've identified that need attention, especially from an African perspective, but also globally. You know, there are solutions that work anywhere in the world, whether you're in Africa or not. So those are some of the things that we are going to look at. But lastly, I took a fascination to what space travel is like, maybe because Elon Musk motivates one to think that, okay, everything is possible. But I'm really looking at how Africa has not really participated in that dimension. And if anyone would be able to at least motivate space exploration, I mean, Africa needs more satellites in space. It helps in terms of connecting other things. So those are some of the initiatives that I personally would want to pursue. My team, obviously, they've got other things that have brewed up. I mean, we are an innovative bunch, to say the least. Like I said before, the agricultural sector seems very promising. There's a lot that can be done there. There's a lot of land in Africa that people can really look at to add value to in the agricultural space using different methods, obviously. But over and above that, the challenges that present themselves even post-COVID-19 lockdowns and such, we really are eager to take them on to see what we can formulate as a solution and offer the best of ourselves to bettering the world in general.
Has COVID had a heavy impact in South Africa?
From where I'm seated, it's a two-sided coin. On the one side, it has exposed weaknesses in terms of the healthcare system, but on the other side, it has crippled the economy because I think African economies are not self-sustaining. You know, people need to be working every day. So when there's a national lockdown enforced and people are not able to get up and go to work, it becomes difficult for the economy to tick. So time will tell if the effects are going to be positive or negative. But on the health side, thankfully, things have not been as projected by like the WHO, when maybe there was some research that suggested that Africa would be hit very hard with this pandemic in terms of infections and maybe mortality rate. But we have been very fortunate, especially in South Africa, that it's not as severe as had been initially projected. The numbers are there, but not to a devastating extent. However, on the economic front, that's where really the damage is being done in Africa, in my view, from the people that I speak to and talk to in different countries. So I think it's a new way of looking at life, where you never really thought this was going to be a problem, but then you notice immediately that, okay, some things have to change. Hence, I say the medical industry in Africa needs to improve drastically. I mean, we can't import critical components or critical equipment for the medical industry, especially during a pandemic, because there will just be none of those things to import. And beyond that, what we've seen on the ground, in my view, and this is just my personal opinion, in my view, has been better than in other parts of the world. And for that we are very thankful. And post COVID-19, I think Africans will just be wiser, more adapt to solving such problems actively or proactively, like to preempt that, okay, this might happen to us, and then put structures in place to mitigate when such disasters do happen.
Right. I heard that Senegal was offering dollar COVID testing, and also because of the lack of access to the ventilators, if I have the word right, like we have in the States, they are 3D printing ventilators cheaply and to provide for the people. So
So, like I said, during this crisis, we also endeavored to do the same. I have no objection to the cheap ventilators. They are very good, but I think making a ventilator in the name of making it is very wrong, because it's like giving a 2-year-old a semi-truck and say, okay, drive from California to New York. And this person has got no experience of this, and it's in a crisis situation. The purpose of a ventilator is to assist a patient in breathing.
Right.
To sustain them when they are infected with a respiratory disease. So this normally, in normal life, ventilators are mainly used for pediatrics, like newborn babies. Right. Who are not adapted to breathing for themselves. So it takes a special kind of operator for the ventilator to save a life. Otherwise, it becomes a weapon in the wrong hands. So I think in the case of Africa, we were on the verge of building a lot of not having the necessary people to operate such ventilators. So you need a respiratory care therapist to be able to operate the device. The ventilator is not meant for the patient per se in terms of operating. It's meant for the practitioner who operates it, because if they don't tune the breathing volume correctly based on what the patient is doing, that proves fatal. And it has been reported that in other countries that was exactly the case. People were just plugging patients into ventilators without even understanding what they're supposed to do. So in the advent of maybe innovation or whatever, people became excited in trying to make ventilators. But the cheap ventilators are an emergency situation to help someone breathe, not for a sustained period of time, not for the 14-day period which it would take for you to then, how can I put it, treat the patient to get rid of the COVID virus. So the efforts that have been done on the continent are commendable. I appreciate the innovation. However, I would then be on the side of caution to say, okay, let's not then plug people into certain ventilators without having evaluated if this is the correct kind of ventilator and if the operator is the correct person to be operating. Because in some countries, there really is no respiratory care practitioner. That's one thing I discovered, and it was very shocking for me. So a colleague of mine, she is a respiratory care practitioner, and she has made it a point to start training people in that space, because apart from the COVID-19, which is similar to pneumonia, these diseases exist in Africa as well, like your pneumonia, malaria, and bronchitis and tuberculosis. They are also very lethal. I think they are in the top 5 killers in Africa, even without the pandemic. So still ventilators will be needed. Still respiratory care practitioners will be needed. So a cheap ventilator is not a long-term solution. It's maybe an emergency measure if administered correctly. But we still have to deal with the pneumonias, we still have to deal with the tuberculosis. So for that, I think the pandemic has opened people's eyes that we need to step up our game into this space.
Right. Considering the current situation with Zimbabwe and sanctions, as we already know here in the United States, how difficult will it be to get the Mureza on the ground running in Zimbabwe, and how has the sanctions affected Zimbabwe in general?
Well, to be honest, I think sanctions is a mythical being, especially for Zimbabwean people. We hear about it, but to a larger extent, we don't see it apparently, From my understanding, sanctions is basically a mechanism that excludes certain individuals or nations from participating in certain global markets, so in terms of retail of products and all of that. But there is never a sanction between African countries. That's something I've never heard of. There's no African countries that don't trade with each other. And I think from Zimbabwe, Sanctions have been there since the year 2008 or 2002 rather, to be quite frank. And I've seen skyscrapers being built in Zimbabwe in that period. So sanctions, if you choose to make them a limitation, there might be a limitation. But in the case of us manufacturing vehicles, it's not something that we consider a challenge because it's not a local challenge. It's a global challenge. Hence, our approach is more of continental, where we know we've got a free trade agreement that's going to support us, where our governments, the South African and Zimbabwean governments are close friends. That's not a secret. The Botswanian and Zimbabwean governments are close friends. And because of the Southern African Development Committee, there is parameters where that support is there. So if that's our market, that's not really a challenge for us. And if we're trading in local currencies, let's say, for example, in Zimbabwe, we say we are trading with South Africa. So the currency of the transaction has to be South African currency. That is done on a daily basis. So I don't foresee sanctions being a challenge. There might be a challenge in terms of acquisition of components from, let's say, Iran, because we are partnered with them. Because of the financial system that operates in the global world. But from where we sit, it's not a challenge. It's something that every entrepreneur would look at and say, okay, so how do I exist in this kind of a situation or this kind of an environment for me to be able to get value and benefit from it? So if the sanctions were removed, that would even be much better. I think it opens us up, open markets or to international markets as a brand. But for now, we are certainly concentrating on that Zimbabwean, South African or SADC region market. So in that phase, I don't foresee that being a challenge, I say.
So the sanctions are pretty much, it really has little effect on how you go about business in Zimbabwe.
On the average citizen, it's got little effect. On a political scale, that's where they're amplified. You know, I would say this with a huge disclaimer. I think sanctions is something that you use as a crutch, you know, in the political game for whatever reason. We are not in the political space. We are a private sector company, so our strategies are more private sector oriented. And I think with the leverage and support of governments, we are able to navigate certain issues. But also in Zimbabwe, there are 2 banks that have been removed from the sanctions list. So I think that's a positive thing, because these sanctions, I think they are mainly at financial transaction movement. From what I know in terms of experience, it's just evaluating, are your transactions above board, you know, you're not funding any irregular activities, etc. So for me, I think those are the concerns that any business person has, even if there are sanctions or no sanctions, you know. For us, for me as Mureza, I don't believe that it's going to be a challenge. If it presents itself as a challenge, I think we would always find a way to mitigate that challenge. Zimbabwe has lived with sanctions for the greater part of 20 years now, and I think they've adapted mechanisms of surviving in such. So to Iran, I think they've lived with sanctions for the greater part of 50 years or 47 years. They've adapted, but they still survive. So I think in terms of world systems, it would be good to be included. It would be good to participate, especially in certain markets and certain forums. But for now, we will just be prudent to say we will manage and pull through regardless of sanctions being there or not.
Oh, look at that. That's a beautiful thing. Is there any business that you feel that that Zim that you wish can happen in Zimbabwe? Anything in particular?
Well, to be honest, for me, I see a lot of value in the entertainment sector for 2 reasons. Because not to speak of the talent, but the potential that is there to inform the world, like this issue of sanctions. You know, if you were to make a movie of people who live in a country with sanctions, I think it opens up so many people's minds, and it's quite entertaining as well how things happen in that world. But there have been some scripts I've seen, and with the advent of platforms like Netflix, I'm sure in the States there's multiple channels where you can do that. Entertainment is big business, but in Africa it just hasn't caught on, especially in countries like Zim. And there's plenty of opportunity, there's plenty of content, whether it be documentary, because there's wildlife, there is the life of the people themselves, how they transition from a rural setting to a city life, which is something I think has got value, or maybe from an African perspective. But from a global perspective, personally, I'm also writing a book. I wouldn't say that's me getting into the entertainment industry, but I feel it's communicating my journey through another medium. Yes, I've built a product, I'm building a business, and that communicates one aspect of it. But the other aspect, there's a side to Tatenda that most people don't know. There's also struggles associated with that. And one of the chapters in the book touches on government and the effects of sanctions per se, which I think is insights that maybe someone in the United States would really want to look at if they're planning on doing business here. There are people who left Africa going to the United States, to Europe, searching for maybe better opportunities because they thought sanctions limited them. However, those same people, they realized that they shouldn't have left in the first place. Not because where they went, they didn't realize what they were looking for, but they realized that we left more opportunities where we came from. So there are so many parallels, there are so many dynamics. So that entertainment industry, I think it's really untapped. I mean, I wish I was daring enough to say I'll try my extent in there. And from South Africa, I've really seen how the industry has grown. In Nigeria as well, has done tremendously well in the entertainment sector, be it music, be it film production, etc. So it's really an open opportunity if anyone dares to really integrate themselves and then see where they can extract value from there.
That's a beautiful thing.
And I'll also point out that the reason why I've learned so much about how the American economy grew based on people like Henry Ford and Andrew Carnegie is because someone filmed it, someone recorded it, and made a movie out of it, and then made a book out of it. So that's maybe my angle of saying that about Africa. In the future, it becomes valuable material of research for anyone who then wants to. And with this advent of going to space, maybe people are going to be studying what happened in Africa and applying it in space. You never know. Definitely. Oh my God. Very, very, very cool. Very cool. I have two last questions for you. What do you feel? What do you say about African Americans assisting or starting businesses in Zimbabwe or South Africa? How can we work with the people on the continent there? Well, I would say based on where the world is now, the world has hit a major reset for everyone. So this is the right time for anyone in America to say, okay, let me put resources in Africa. And I mean, the land is cheap, labor is cheap. So if you're looking to produce something, I think Africa is the continent for you to do that, because there is like a huge percentage of unemployment, and people would, to put it mildly, they'll be glad to work for a moderate price as compared to competitive markets like the Americas and Europe. So if you're looking at production, this could be the next frontier, and hence we chose Africa as well. But if you're an entrepreneur and you want to realize profits, I think Africa is the best continent to do that. Why I say that? Most of Africa pays cash. They don't rely on credit. So if they're buying a car, they normally buy it cash. It's not owned by the bank, it's owned by the individual. If it's a house being built, individuals probably pay cash. And I'm talking of a country like Zimbabwe that has got sanctions. These are what we call open markets. They are not heavily regulated in terms of setting up a business. All you need to do is to register there. And if you're coming from a place like America, you've got an unprecedented advantage. It gives you direct access to the corridors of power in the forms of the president, etc., which are things that I think are advantages to any business person. If you want to do business at a large scale and influence how your product or service is perceived in a nation, I think aligning with governments or government policies and plans which are formulated in the corridors of power. I think African Americans have got a huge advantage there, and I think they've got an even better advantage because they've got access to the financial capital. So there's plenty of ideas to finance in Africa. If you do your due diligence and you formulate relationships with the right kind of people and plug into the correct opportunities, I think you realize more profit than you would maybe anywhere else in the world. And I'm saying this mildly, but some people have proven that. I remember Akon. Akon. He went up and posted the saying that you can triple or double your money in Africa in a short space of time than you would anywhere else in the world, because the whole world system has reached a saturation point. But in Africa, it's like a simple transaction can give you 100% profit without you even having lifted too many muscles. But maybe from an African perspective, I understand that better. But there's so many of these opportunities. I can say maybe I don't have enough time to do that, and it's something that I would leave to the hands or to the minds of someone who is looking to explore new opportunities, new challenges, and they're there for the taking. And Africans are people who are very willing to share, as long as it makes reasonable sense to all parties involved. I would say that there's plenty of opportunities for people to take up here.
Well, and they're saying the trend is that manufacturing is moving from China to Africa, and Africa is going to be the next hotbed of manufacturing in the near future.
I would say 200%. For one reason, Africa has got all the raw materials you need. So it's the wealthiest continent in terms of raw materials. If you look at your cobalt, most of it is in Africa. That's the resource you need for manufacturing electric vehicles. And I'm sure Elon Musk could do with a lot of cobalt. I don't know if there's cobalt out there in the States, but in Africa there's plenty of it. There's no country in Africa that doesn't have cobalt, period.
Right.
Number two, I think the process of enriching or beneficiating that raw material into a product, you save tons of money. So traditionally, your gold, your platinum, your lithium, uranium, which most of it comes from the southern African region of Africa, is shipped to another part of the world and enriched there for use in certain so it comes back as a product. So what Africa doesn't have is the process. When you have the process in Africa, I think you'll be the next superpower in the world. I think you'll be the next billionaire in the world. It's just how you position yourself. And I know a couple of people who are endeavoring to make that transition smooth for people who are out there in the States, should they want to do that. Myself, I also dabble in my other exploits in business. I also double as a business consultant, business advisor, based on my experiences in the two countries, to help people really orient themselves, point them in the right direction, if I were to say that. Should they be looking at connecting into Africa.
Right. Okay, and this ties in well to the last question. It's really, the hairs are raising off of my arm here. with countries such as Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, South Sudan, Tanzania, and Uganda setting up the East African Federation to be formed, let's say loosely around 2023. Do you see a Southern Union bloc happening with South Africa and other countries? And what do you think the effect will be to other neighboring countries and Africa as a whole by the East African Federation coming together?
Well, I think... Sorry, go ahead.
The pretty much those two questions. I mean, how does that have an effect on, will South Africa and other Southern African countries form their own bloc? And with the East African Federation coming together, what does that mean for neighboring countries and Africa as a whole?
Well, to be quite honest, I think those federations are not really going to pose a problem in Africa, because there's a bigger free trade agreement that is in play. So that's all 54 countries have signed on to say, okay, let's all be one market. So these blocks of trade are mainly based on reducing the trade requirements between the countries in the region. So if that East African trade bloc materializes, all it simply does is there is no border. It's like the Eurozone in Europe. That's the example I would give you, where you've got probably one currency that works in all the different countries, and you probably you travel with one passport. So it actually promotes trade within that bloc, right? So, I think that competition now would be healthy, because there's already the Southern African trade bloc. So it's sort of like the Eastern African is catching up. So there's already a Northern African bloc where there's the Egypt, Algerias, Moroccos. They're doing fine on that end of Africa. But in terms of African demographics, there is Sub-Saharan Africa. That excludes the MENA region. That's the northern part of Africa. And then there is the rest of Africa. So the Eastern bloc is going to be there. I'm very sure that there's going to be a Western bloc, where there will be the Nigerias, the Liberias, or something like that, and then
Ghana,
Niger, Benin,
right.
Ghana. All it speaks to is to healthy competition, because what I've noticed is Africa is trying to define itself. So maybe these trade blocs will help us turn a corner in a way, and with more innovation coming through, with more products being made in Africa, manufacturing coming down here, you see that there is more benefit in leveraging those trade blocks under one umbrella, which is the African Free Trade Agreement. So okay, maybe Western Africa focuses on production of certain items, Eastern Africa focuses on production of certain things, and Southern Africa focuses on production of certain things, and Central Africa focuses on this. And they're building a large railway network to connect all these trade blocks. So to me, it's just defining what a region is good at and trying to promote that. And in East Africa, I wouldn't lie to you, the buzz is there now. There's a lot of investment going into East Africa. So it only makes sense for them to promote East Africa more. But in Southern Africa as well, there's also new projects, new opportunities that emerging. So it becomes very competitive, where the Southern side is saying, okay, let's also up our game. And that competition, I think, is very healthy internally in terms of economy. And it sort of like helps the local currencies, because some of these currencies in the region, like in Kenya, we are on the verge of opening a Tanzanian office. So I've been doing a lot of interaction with people in that Eastern trade bloc, and the currencies there were seriously devalued. So that trade bloc increases the strength of that currency and limits dependency on, let's say, the US dollar, and they're able to sustain themselves as an economy there. So I think that's a very grown-up move, if I were to say that, where they're emancipating themselves from dependencies of because some of the countries now, I would have to say, they were very dependent on their previously colonial masters. So they need to then figure out a way to stand on their own, which is this trade block. And I think that's going to be very key, and it opens up so many opportunities for the locals within the continent.
And then to me, it would just be, it would just, I think, strategically, it just wouldn't make sense, because you're consistently and constantly expecting to get some sort of assistance from outside countries. And assistance is not bad when you're working towards a specific goal. But then if you rely too much on an outside force, it can be a hindrance and slow you down. Something that goes wrong, and and all of a sudden you cannot stand on your 2 feet because you rely too heavily on outside forces or partners, so to speak, quote unquote. So I think it's important for Africa to stand to create outside partnerships, but also simultaneously be able to support itself in case there is trouble between those partnerships. So I think it's important to how that's developed, that strategic plan, business-wise and politically. So man, that's it. I appreciate Mr. Tatenda Mungofa for being on this call. This is a bright mind for Africa as a whole on the continent, and we look forward to seeing where the Mureza will go and where Mr. Tatenda Mungofa would take himself once he establishes the Mureza on the continent. Where else will Mr. Mungofa take where his mind will go and develop new and exciting things? So I do appreciate you being on this call. Thank you so much, Mr. Mungofa.
Nova, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's always very insightful when I speak to you. I think the best version of me comes out when you ask me these questions. And I encourage all your listeners to tune into your show regularly. I mean, it's full of insights. I also learn a lot of things about my content from you. And I look forward to getting people in Africa to connect in the best way possible, to also try and access partnerships or opportunities maybe in the United States for themselves. And what I would say is, as a growing brand, we appreciate the support we get from the likes of you. I mean, getting a platform like this is a huge blessing for us. And I would like to say for your listeners, they can follow us on our Facebook page, Mureza Auto Company. We are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and we'd like to hear, and LinkedIn as well. We'd like to hear reviews, what people expect from us, what they look forward to Mureza doing, and then maybe one day they might end up owning a Mureza themselves. So I look forward to a brighter future.
Fantastic. So thanks, folks, and I also, please, I would love to have you as a guest again for future shows on any new developments.
Definitely. I would love to come back.
Definitely. All right, so hold on a second. All right, folks, thank you for listening to GCOM Radio. Hopefully, I'm glad you appreciated this conversation that we had and all the music that played on the show. Please go to Lyfeblood.com, become a Lyfer, be open to new things with your new passions. We're turning the corner into a new day, and it's up to you to seek that power within yourself in order to achieve your dreams. So thank you, folks. I appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
Yo, check it. You just listened to GCOM Radio, powered by Lyfeblood.com for the global community. We worldwide, baby. See you in the next go round. From right here to your town. We out.